One day, a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. He wanted to know the secret to eternal life. With a serious tone, he asked, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus, always patient and wise, didn't answer directly. Instead, he gently turned the question back to the lawyer. "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" The lawyer thought for a moment. He knew the law well, so he confidently quoted two key scriptures. "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind." Deuteronomy 6:5. "And love your neighbor as yourself." Leviticus 19:18. Jesus nodded and said, "You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live." But the lawyer wasn't satisfied. He wanted to justify himself. So he asked another question, "And who is my neighbor?" The deeper lesson. Jesus' response taught a valuable lesson. Knowing the law is good, but living it is what truly matters. It's not enough to simply understand the words. One must show love through actions. The key message. Eternal life isn't about rules alone. It's about a heart full of love for God and others. This love must be seen in how we treat people every day, not just in what we say or believe. By asking the lawyer to reflect on the law, Jesus reminded him, and all of us, that true faith requires action. Loving God and loving others go hand in hand, leading to a life that honors God and points to eternity. We're called to live out our love for God by caring for those around us. When we do, we're walking the path to eternal life. After hearing Jesus' words about loving God and loving others, the lawyer had one more question. Trying to justify himself, he asked, "Who is my neighbor?" In Jewish society, many believed that a neighbor only included fellow Jews, people from their own community, culture, and faith. The lawyer's question wasn't just about curiosity. He wanted to know how far his responsibility went. Was it only to his friends and family, or did it include others he didn't like or even strangers? Jesus didn't answer with a list or a simple explanation. Instead, he told a story, inviting the lawyer and everyone listening to think differently. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Jesus began. This road was known for being dangerous, with robbers often hiding along the way. Sure enough, the man in the story was attacked by robbers. They beat him, took everything he had, and left him half dead by the side of the road. Soon, a priest came walking down the same road. He saw the wounded man but passed by on the other side, ignoring him. Later, a Levite, someone who also worked in the temple, came along. He, too, saw the man but did nothing to help. Then, Jesus mentioned someone unexpected, a Samaritan. Samaritans and Jews didn't get along. In fact, they often avoided each other. But this Samaritan, when he saw the injured man, felt compassion. He didn't hesitate. He went to the man, cleaned and bandaged his wounds, and gently lifted him onto his own donkey. The Samaritan took him to an inn and cared for him through the night. The next day, he gave the innkeeper money and said, "Take care of him. If it costs more, I'll pay you when I return." The lesson. When Jesus finished the story, he asked the lawyer, "Which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by robbers?" The lawyer couldn't ignore the truth. He replied, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus smiled and said, "Go and do likewise." Jesus used this story to teach a powerful lesson. A neighbor isn't just someone who looks like you, believes like you, or lives near you. A neighbor is anyone in need, no matter their background or differences. By choosing a Samaritan, a person despised by many Jews, as the hero of the story, Jesus showed that true love knows no boundaries. The lawyer's question revealed a desire to limit his responsibility, but Jesus broadened the definition of love and compassion. Being a neighbor means showing kindness and mercy to everyone, even those we might not expect. True love is active. It crosses barriers and meets people where they are. Jesus calls us to go and do likewise, living out love through our actions every day. Each character in the parable of the Good Samaritan teaches us something important about compassion, responsibility, and true love for others. A man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, a dangerous route known for bandits. Along the way, he was attacked, beaten, robbed, and left for dead. Jesus didn't give many details about this man. We don't know his name, background, or whether he was rich or poor. Why is this important? Jesus kept the man's identity vague on purpose. This makes him a universal symbol of need. The point is that anyone, no matter who they are, can find themselves in trouble and in need of help. The focus isn't on who he is, but on how others respond to him. Jesus introduced a priest, a respected religious leader. Priests served in the temple, leading worship and offering sacrifices. You would expect a priest to show compassion. However, when he saw the wounded man lying on the road, he chose to pass by on the other side. Why didn't he help? Perhaps he was afraid of becoming ritually impure. According to Jewish law, touching a dead body would make him unclean and unable to perform his duties. He may have feared for his safety, thinking the robbers might still be nearby. Whatever his reasons, the priest put his concerns above the needs of the injured man. Lesson: religious knowledge or position is not enough. What matters is acting on that knowledge with compassion. Faith should lead to action, not excuses. A Levite, another temple worker, came next. Levites assisted priests and knew God's laws well. Like the priest, he also saw the man and chose to walk away, avoiding any involvement. Why did he avoid the man? The Levite may have had similar concerns as the priest, fear of impurity or danger. He, too, knew what was right but failed to act. Lesson: knowing God's commands is meaningless without obedience. Love and compassion must move us to help others, even when it's inconvenient or risky. Finally, Jesus introduced a Samaritan, the most unexpected character. Samaritans and Jews had a long history of hostility. They didn't associate with each other and often saw each other as enemies. Yet, when the Samaritan saw the wounded man, he was filled with compassion. Unlike the priest and Levite, the Samaritan didn't hesitate. He went to the man, treated his wounds, and provided ongoing care. He even paid for the man's stay at an inn, promising to cover any additional costs. Why is this significant? The Samaritan's actions broke cultural boundaries. He didn't let prejudice or hatred stop him from helping someone in need. His love was practical. It involved time, effort, and personal sacrifice. Lesson: true compassion goes beyond words and cultural barriers. It requires action, even for those we might see as different or distant. The Samaritan showed what it means to be a true neighbor by caring for someone without expecting anything in return. Through these characters, Jesus taught that love and mercy are not about titles, positions, or social status. True love is shown in action. The priest and Levite, despite their religious roles, failed to help. The Samaritan, an outsider, became the hero by showing mercy. Jesus' message is clear. Being a neighbor means showing kindness and compassion to anyone in need, regardless of who they are. We are called to love others through our actions, breaking down barriers, and helping those around us. Who are the neighbors in your life today? How can you show compassion, even when it's hard or inconvenient? Like the Samaritan, we are called to go beyond comfort and love others with selfless action. In Jesus' parable, the Samaritan's actions stand out because of their deep care and selflessness. Each step he takes shows what true compassion looks like, not just feelings, but actions that meet real needs. When the Samaritan saw the injured man lying by the road, he didn't look away. Instead, he was moved with pity. His heart ached for the man's suffering. Unlike the priest and Levite, who avoided the situation, the Samaritan's compassion stirred him to act. Why is this important? Jesus shows that love starts in the heart. Before we can help others, we need to care about their pain. The Samaritan didn't ask if the man was a fellow Samaritan, or if he deserved help. He simply saw someone in need and responded with kindness. Compassion wasn't just a feeling for the Samaritan, it led to practical action. He immediately began to help the injured man, bandaging the wounds. The Samaritan likely tore his own clothes to make bandages. Using oil and wine, in those days, oil soothed wounds, and wine acted as an antiseptic to clean them. The Samaritan used what he had to treat the man's injuries. Placing him on his donkey, the Samaritan didn't just stop at first aid. He lifted the man onto his own donkey, which meant he would have to walk the rest of the journey himself. Taking him to an inn, he brought the man to a safe place, where he could rest and recover. Why is this important? The Samaritan didn't do the bare minimum, he went above and beyond. His actions show that true love is hands-on. It involves effort, time, and resources to truly help someone in need. At the inn, the Samaritan continued to care for the injured man. The next day, he gave the innkeeper 2 denarii, a generous amount of money, enough to cover several days' stay. He also made a promise: take care of him, and if you spend more, I will repay you when I return. This promise was significant. The Samaritan didn't just help in the moment. He committed to the man's full recovery, even if it meant paying more later. Why is this important? The Samaritan's actions show selfless love. He wasn't thinking about what he might lose: his time, his money, or his comfort. He only cared about helping someone in need. His compassion was costly, but he didn't hesitate. The lesson: love without limits. Through the Samaritan's example, Jesus teaches that true love is sacrificial. It goes beyond what is easy or convenient. It's about putting others first, even when it costs us something. Compassion starts in the heart but must lead to action. Practical help means doing whatever it takes to meet someone's needs. Selfless love involves personal sacrifice, giving time, resources, and effort without expecting anything in return. Jesus ended the story by telling the lawyer, "Go and do likewise." This is a call for all of us to show the same kind of love, love that acts, sacrifices, and sees everyone as our neighbor. In Jewish culture, a neighbor was often thought to be someone close, like a fellow Jew, a friend, or a family member. But Jesus turned that idea upside down. He showed that a neighbor isn't defined by proximity or similarity. Instead, a neighbor is anyone in need. The lesson Jesus taught: neighborliness is about compassion. It doesn't matter where someone comes from or who they are. What matters is showing love and mercy. Actions speak louder than words. Knowing the right thing isn't enough. True love requires action. Love breaks barriers. The Samaritan and the injured man were supposed to be enemies, but compassion overcame cultural and social divisions. Jesus' command to go and do likewise is a call to all of us. Being a neighbor means looking beyond differences and showing mercy to anyone in need. It's about choosing love over prejudice and taking action, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. Who can you show mercy to today? How can you be a neighbor to someone who needs help? Like the Samaritan, we are called to love with our hearts and our hands, offering kindness to all. Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan is more than just a story. It's a powerful teaching on what it means to truly love and serve others. Lesson: love transcends ethnic, religious, and social barriers. In the story, the Samaritan helps a Jewish man, despite the deep animosity between their groups. This shows that true love isn't limited by background, race, or status. A neighbor is anyone in need, regardless of differences. We are called to love people who are different from us. Genuine love sees past divisions and focuses on the shared humanity of all people. Lesson: faith is not just about belief but is demonstrated through loving deeds. The Samaritan didn't just feel sorry for the injured man, he took action. He bandaged the wounds, transported the man to safety, and paid for his care. True compassion is active, not passive. Love requires action. It's not enough to feel sympathy. We must take steps to help. Simple acts of kindness can make a huge difference in someone's life. Lesson: everyone is called to help those in need, even when it's inconvenient or costly. The Samaritan's help came at a personal cost: his time, resources, and effort. Yet, he chose to prioritize compassion over convenience. The priest and Levite avoided responsibility, but the Samaritan embraced it. Helping others often requires sacrifice. We are morally responsible for each other, especially in times of need. 4. Breaking stereotypes. Lesson: the Samaritan, despised by Jews, is the hero, challenging prejudices and assumptions. Jesus deliberately made a Samaritan the hero to confront the lawyers and society's prejudices. The story teaches that goodness and compassion are not limited to certain groups. We should challenge our own biases and assumptions about others. People from all backgrounds are capable of great kindness and should be judged by their actions, not stereotypes. Final reflection. The parable encourages us to live out a life of love, compassion, and responsibility toward all people. It reminds us that loving God is inseparable from loving our neighbors, no matter who they are. Jesus' call to go and do likewise is an invitation to live a life of active, selfless love that breaks down barriers and changes lives. How can you be a good Samaritan today? Relevance of the Good Samaritan parable for today. Although Jesus told this story over 2,000 years ago, its message is timeless and deeply relevant in our modern world. It challenges us to reflect on how we treat others, especially those in need, and to live out love and compassion in practical ways. The parable encourages active involvement in caring for the vulnerable and marginalized in society. Just as the Samaritan went out of his way to help the injured man, we are called to advocate for and support those who are overlooked or oppressed. Stand up for the rights of the poor, homeless, and refugees. Support charities and organizations that work to bring justice and equality. Volunteer in local communities, offering time and resources to those in need. Key point: true social justice involves personal action and a commitment to helping those society often ignores. The story of the Samaritan challenges us to overcome biases based on race, religion, or social class. In a world often divided by differences, this parable reminds us that everyone is our neighbor, and compassion should know no boundaries. Build relationships with people from different backgrounds. Challenge stereotypes and stand against discrimination. Promote unity and understanding in workplaces, schools, and communities. Key point: true love sees beyond labels and divisions, embracing all people with dignity and respect. The Samaritan didn't just feel compassion, he acted on it. The parable teaches that love is not just a feeling or a word, it's a commitment to helping others in tangible ways. Offer practical help to those in need, whether it's through financial support, a listening ear, or physical assistance. Be intentional in showing kindness, even in small ways, like helping a neighbor or comforting a friend. Support community initiatives that provide aid and services to the less fortunate. Key point: love is demonstrated through action, not just words or intentions. In today's world, where division, prejudice, and injustice often prevail, the parable of the Good Samaritan calls us to live differently. It challenges us to embrace compassion, break down barriers, and take practical steps to help others. By following Jesus' command to go and do likewise, we can create a more loving and just society, one act of kindness at a time. Who is your neighbor today, and how can you show them love in action? By saying, "Go and do likewise," Jesus was calling the lawyer, and everyone listening, to action. It wasn't enough to know what the law said about loving God and others. The real challenge was to put that love into practice, just like the Samaritan did. May your spiritual journey be filled with God's grace and peace. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to inspire others on their walk with the Lord.